start, I'd like to ask a question. So raise your hand if you like positivity. Okay, we're almost 100%. A few people undecided. Maybe it's later in the evening. So it's not going to go down as scientific research for 2016. But what it does say to us here today in Swansea is we like positivity. And that's good news, because I'm going to share a story, a real story of Create the Ripple, how one person can reach tens of thousands of people across the globe every day. And all it took was a little bit of belief, a whole lot of passion and positivity, laced with a sense of purpose. And resilience. Resilience is a big part of who I am. So let's think about it. Before I tell you the story, actually, let me give you a little bit of background just about who I am and to help give some context and understanding. I'm an individual who has an instilled passion of enthusiasm and wanting to make a difference. It's so important to me. But where does that come from? Where does that drive, that motivation every day, whether I'm with friends or family, colleagues, people like you this evening in the audience, why do I want to make a difference? So I started a little journey of self-exploration, and it's really interesting to find out why we do what we do. I was adopted, and my mother and father made a difference to me. On the face of it, yes, I'm a learning professional that loves to inspire and motivate. But it's so much deeper than that. It's my wonderful parents. There was another event as well a number of years ago. My father had a heart operation. His heart is fine. His brain, not so. He suffered severe brain damage as a result of the operation, both sides of the brain, and a hypoxic injury as well, which means there's no recovery. He's left mentally and physically incapable. And I had a choice of how I was going to deal with that devastating blow. And I chose positivity, because I had no control over the situation, but what I did have control over was how I was going to react to it. So ladies and gentlemen, it's those two elements of where Create the Ripple came from. That I want to make a difference, and I want to do it in a positive way. So what is Create the Ripple? Create the Ripple is a Twitter account. It's got over 34,000 followers across the globe. And in addition to that, it has thousands of retweets and mentions and shout-outs every week. I never expected it to be quite so successful, because it's just one person, me, most of the time on my phone, in between work and family and all of the other things that we do. But it's fascinating, really. I post positive quotes. It's something I love about Twitter. If you like something and you like someone, you'll follow them. If you don't, you won't. But I'm digressing completely. That's a whole different TED Talk. It's probably not the best time to digress on a timed TEDx talk, so I'll stick to the script. So where were we? So I decided what I was going to do, and then I thought, right, what do I need to do? So I set up the account. I started posting, if I do say so myself, some really good positive quotes. I followed people, and guess what happened? Nothing. No, absolutely bloody nothing. I mean, seriously. I sat there and I was like, okay, what do I need to do here? I'd never really adventured into social media before. It was interesting, though, because I remember as well when I got 10 followers. I really remember it. I'm going to ignore the fact that 9 of them were my friends and families and colleagues, and the other 10th was the spam account. But it didn't matter, because I had 10 followers. I started to spread the net a little wider. And interestingly, I remember my 22nd follower was a lady called Ali Pollin. She's a renowned Australian leadership thinker and talker. And she followed me. She had thousands of followers, but she followed me. But it wasn't just the following. She sent me a message. She said, I get it. I get what you're trying to do. I don't think she realized how much of a difference that made to me. And I realized I was going to need some of that resilience to help me with the challenge of trying to spread some positivity. I'll go forward about 3 or 4 weeks, and I was sitting in a restaurant with a friend. At this time now, ladies and gentlemen, I had 60 followers. Yeah, 60. She had 70. And I remember quizzing her, saying, what do you do? Where do you get followers from? And honestly, I think the conversation ended by her saying, Emma, look, I'm more popular than you in real life, and I'm more popular than you now virtually as well. Which I think is probably true, but I'm okay with that. Because it got me thinking. It got me thinking that social media, Twitter, it isn't and it shouldn't be a popularity contest. It's a form of human connection. So what was it that I did every day in my day job that allowed me to connect to people? And how was I going to translate that into the virtual world that was social media? And I realized there were 3 key things. 1, I am authentic, which means I am me. 2, consistency. I am always me. And 3, an understanding of purpose. I know why I am me. And it's those 3 things that shaped the way that I started to communicate. People weren't that bothered with what I was posting. It was more about who was posting it. It was more about how I was posting it, and importantly for me, why I was posting it. So I started to take time, which again, in the busyness of life that we live, we sometimes don't make the same effort when we're on the telephone or emails or social media that we might do when we've got someone in front of us. So I took that time. I started to treat people as individuals. I started to show people that I care. And my goodness, what a reaction. Create the Ripple grew and grew. Who knew there were so many positive people out there? Something that I'd almost been criticized for in the past by saying, Emma, you're always positive. I met other people that are always positive as well. And I can't name them all, and I wish I could, but they are from, there's Wright Thurston. He's in Alaska. He's a famous speaker with hundreds of thousands of followers, and yet, interestingly, nearly every day, he shares something that I've shared. That's international connection. And then there's the hundreds and hundreds of healthcare professionals, nurses and doctors and midwives, flying the flag of positivity in our NHS. And lots of other healthcare providers saying that they get strength and hope and smiles from me, from my tweet line. And then, of course, the individuals. There are so many individuals that share things with me. Let's call it their stuff. Their happy stuff, their not so happy stuff, challenging stuff. And it's that stuff that creates us as humans. It was fast becoming a go-to account. And what that means is instead of people waiting for messages to come up, people make a choice, a conscious choice to tap in to create the Ripple because they know what they're going to find. They're going to find me. And they're always going to find me there as well. I'll give you an example of that. A lady with a terminal illness, going in for an operation, nothing to do with her illness, but another absolutely awful health issue she had. She sent me a message. She sent me a message to say that the tweets had made her smile. The tweets had made her have a little bit of hope. So when someone says to me, Emma, why do you create the Ripple? I say, why wouldn't I? Because I can make a difference. And then people will often say to me, but how do you find time? You're so busy, you have your family, you have your life. But the thing is, a smile, eye contact, a kind word, a gesture, these things don't take time. These things are dynamite. TNT, I call it. Because TNT stands for tiny, noticeable things. And tiny, noticeable things can make such a difference. So what am I asking of you? I'm asking you to be just a little bit more conscious, a little bit more of the time, not just face to face, but also when you send an email, when you make a telephone call. Because I think sometimes we underestimate the power of positivity and the difference that that can make. It would be really remiss of me, given that Create the Ripple is all about quotes, not to give you one of my favorite quotes. Maya Angelou, and she says, people forget what you say, people forget what you do, people never forget how you make them feel. At the core of everything we do is human connection. And if you do that with authenticity, wrap it up in some consistency, deliver it on a plate of purpose with that knife and fork of resilience that I was talking about, you don't just create ripples of positivity. You create ripples that really make a difference. So there are 2 thank yous before I end this evening. I want to say thank you to every single person in this room for the difference that you've made to me, the difference that you make to one another, the difference you make to people every single day. And I also want to say thank you. Thank you to my mum and dad for the difference that they make to me. Thank you.